What's going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Texas Street Stories. If you haven't already subscribed, help your boy out and hit that subscribe button. Today's episode of Texas Street Stories, we're going to be talking about the Texas Syndicate member who later became a Texas Mafia member. You know, Texas Syndicate is predominantly a Hispanic gang, and the Texas Mafia is predominantly white gang. You know, now you're gonna ask a question. You know, how did a Texas Syndicate become a Texas Mafia, a predominantly white organization? We're gonna get into that. Andy Canales Jr. was born in Illinois on December 1st, 1964. His sister Elizabeth was born just over a year later. Canales' parents were alcoholics and his father was violent. After his parents split up, Canales' mother married Carlos Espinoza, who spent the next 6 years physically and sexually abusing Canales and Elizabeth. As Elizabeth stated, Andy had to strip sometimes to be beaten. I remember seeing Andy lying naked, curled up in the ball. Carlos hitting him as hard as he could with the buckle end of the belt. Carlos would beat Andy until he had welts and bruises all over his body. When Canales was just 6 years old, Espinoza sexually assaulted him. Man, so he got raped at 6 years old by, stepmom's boyfriend. That's why it's always important, if you're going to have kids, be in their lives, because, your kids might be in situations because of their mom and put them in predicaments like this with dudes around, that are going to sexually assault them, abuse them, and just beat them. It's not their own. That's the sad part about that when the relationship doesn't work, the kids pay, you know what I mean? Canales twice witnessed his sister being raped, and he tried to intervene and only to receive further beatings. Canales' mother, meanwhile, was largely absent. Canales' cousin, a child herself, babysat in exchange for beer and cigarettes. A 10-year-old girl smoking cigarettes and beer. Canales began drinking when he was just about 10. His family lived in poverty in neighborhoods where gang membership was common. Canales witnessed a man get shot to death in the street when he was only 6. Yeah, I guess I was around the same time when I seen the same thing, at a house party, at my party at a relative, well, at my house, not house, but at my apartment, I'll talk about that story later on. At around 8 or 9, Canales was forced to join the Latin Kings. I don't know about forcing, nobody's really picking anybody up and saying, hey, you're going to join the gang now, you know what I mean? It's more of a, you hang around them if you want, but, I don't see why a gang will force an 8, 9-year-old to join a gang. What's value to an 8, 9-year-old? What is he going to do? He had been shot and stabbed by the time he was 12. By the age of 12, he was already shot and stabbed. That's kind of messed up. I'm 41 and I've never been shot or stabbed. They've been tried both, but not successful. Eventually, his mother moved to San Antonio with Elizabeth and Canales' half-sister, Gabriela. Canales, however, was sent to Houston to live with his father. So they sent him off to his father, but sending him at a grown age, and he's already smoking and drinking, and his dad probably thought he was going to get a good kid, and he got another grown man in there. Later that year, his father relocated to Laredo, and the family made clear to Canales that he could not come. Completely abandoned by his parents, Canales fell deeper into the crime substance. He was arrested for car theft at 13, and by 14 was an alcoholic. Canales ultimately made his way to San Antonio, where he alternated between juvenile detention facilities, homelessness, and living with his mother in other family homes. The family found more stable housing when his mother moved in with John Ramirez, but Ramirez was just another string of cruel father figures. Ramirez beat Canales' mother and Elizabeth when Canales, now in his late teens, was not around to stop him. In Elizabeth's words, Andy was too big to beat, so I was safe whenever Andy was around. He was always brave when I needed him to be. I will forever be grateful for that. We love him. Gabriel likewise observed that Andy had a kind heart and he loved my mom and me, Elizabeth, a lot. So, man, he was there defending his sisters. That's what happens. These girls be marrying these dudes and shacking up with these dudes left and right, and at the end of the day, the kids suffer. You know what I mean? I know it ain't easy to make it work it out, but I know it doesn't always work out. But everybody got to try, at least for them. In 1983, when he was 18, Canales stole an income tax check from Ramirez. Ramirez insisted on prosecution. In Elizabeth's words, Ramirez wanted Andy out the way, and that way he pursued prosecution for the stolen check. He wanted access to my mom, to my sister, and me. Andy was protective of all of us. The stolen check sent Canales to federal prison. Later that same year, he was convicted of theft and sexual assault and received a 15-year sentence, during which he joined the Texas Syndicate prison gang. Canales was paroled in 1990. I don't know how he was able to join with the sexual assault case. I guess it was kind of. I guess they weren't too educated on how to check on paperwork or be like, hey, where's your paperwork? Or I don't know how he joined it with him having those kind of charges. Canales was paroled in 1990 and started building a new life. He did not drink excessively or use drugs, and instead was affectionate with his girlfriend and helped out at home. The two discussed getting married, but 2 years into Canales' parole, his mother suffered a stroke and a brain aneurysm, losing her motor function and ability to speak. Canales was devastated. He turned back to drugs and alcohol, and his relationship ended by 1993. He had been convicted of a second sexual assault. His parole was revoked, and he returned to prison. So not only once, but he got twice. He got 2 charges now of sexual assault, and he's going back to the same organization that he left in a few years back. Canales suffered a heart attack in prison. I'm pretty mad. He's probably scared now, and was placed on blood thinners, which caused him to bruise easily and bleed for hours if he sustained a cut. He could not defend himself, and other inmates knew it when they discovered that Canales had prior sex offenses and had been a member of the Latin Kings. The Texas Syndicate ordered him killed. So not only was he a sex offender, but he had already previously joined an organization. So it's like, man, you just flip-flopping, and I guess he's been flip-flopping all his life. Because it didn't stop there. Instead of facing his demise, and like this other one that I'm later on I'll bring up, he faced it forward and took what was coming toward him. But Canales had a cellmate at the time named Bruce Richards, who at the time was the leader of another prison gang, the Texas Mafia. The Texas Mafia was a predominantly white gang. Here in Texas, when I went to prison at the time in the early 2000s, the white gangs, the white family gangs that were there were the AB, the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, the Aryan Circle, and of course you had the Prickle Woods, you had the White Knights, and then you had the Texas Mafia. But the ones that are, so far that are only last year, so that I think that lasted here in Texas was just the AB and the Aryan Circle. Those are the only two prominent, I think, white groups, other than the Peckerwoods. So Richards, he's a cellmate. He's the leader of the Texas Mafia. Richards agreed to admit Canales to the Texas Mafia and made a deal with the Texas Syndicate. The way I see it, it was, this Richards, this Texas Mafia, he needed somebody to get hit. Maybe he couldn't, his own people couldn't get to him. And he had this guy right here, this crash dummy. He owed him his life. He basically made a deal with the Texas Syndicate. Texas Syndicate wanted this guy, took him out. But I'm pretty sure the Texas Mafia says, look, let him do what I got him to do. He's gonna be taken out. He'll probably end up in death row. And the state will kill him for you. You want him dead, right? That way none of your bros get caught up. None of my bros get jammed up. It's a win-win situation for you. They probably worked out a deal amongst themselves. They wanted Canales killed. Texas Syndicate wanted Canales killed. So they're like, if he dies, that's the whole thing, right? We want him to die. So if he gets killed by our hands or somebody else's hand, or by the state's hand, by our doing, then so be it. We want him dead. So, and if we can get something in return, so they gained off his, off his dumminess, off his life, basically. Because now he owed this Richards his life. Richards agreed to admit Canales to the Texas Mafia and made a deal with the Texas Syndicate for his protection. Canales Dow owed Richards his life. Yeah, he did. He basically saved him, but now he's your puppet master. Shortly thereafter, and on Richard's instructions, Canales helped kill an inmate named Gary Dickerson, who was blackmailing the gang. Richards also instructed Canales to write to another inmate exaggerating Canales' role in the murder. As Richard later explained, if Canales refused to do what I told him to do, I would have him sent back to the Texas Syndicate and they would have killed him. Canales was convicted of the killing, and the state saw the death penalty. I don't know, man. It's like, he joined one organization. He went from the Latin Kings to Texas Syndicate to Texas Mafia to on death row. 50-year-old. He's been on death row for 22 years. And on Wednesday, March 29, 2023, Texas had a plan to execute him. But then at 6 o'clock, his execution was withdrawn. So they basically spared his life. State of Texas spared his life, but ain't no telling if he's spared or it's just on hold, or maybe he get ran court again and maybe get a life sentence. But either way, he's going to be dead. If they're still looking for the dude, I'm pretty sure going back and forth, and that's crazy, man. How you can go from one set to another set to another set, and each set has its own criteria and an agenda and the bylaws. I'm pretty sure if he hits population, ain't nothing good too going to be happening to this guy. But then again, that's the life that a lot of these guys choose to live. Thank you for tuning in to Texas Street Stories. And if you ain't hit that subscribe button, do your boy a favor and hit that subscribe button. I hope y'all enjoyed this, and I'll be dropping a little bit more, consistently dropping a little bit more different topics. I'm gonna get back into my story, but there's a lot of interesting stories out here that, that just might be interesting to you, like just like they're interesting to me. So stay tuned. Peace.